Okay, and so here we go today. We're back and we're this time, rather than just factorizing quadratic equations, we are solving them. And before, when we've done anything with quadratics, they've been quadratic expressions. This time we've got equations. Okay, and so taking a look here, well, this is kind of what we're used to when it comes to quadratics. So this is a quadratic, it's a trinomial because there is 3 terms. It's a quadratic because we've a variable that is squared, so that's what makes it a quadratic. But at the moment, this is an expression, okay, when it's like this. Now, one thing I can do to it to make it an equation, and that is if I put in what would make it an equation? An equal sign. So once an equal sign goes in, it is now an equation, okay? And so it has to be equal to something. So generally we'd like them to be equal to 0. So if I, for example, had a constant here, another number here, or if I had anything over here, I'll bring every term over to the left-hand side so that I can put it equal to 0. Okay, so that's a quadratic equation. So we're going to look today at solving these. Now, it's very straightforward because we're well able to factorize them. So that's one of our methods for solving for x. So we're going to take a look at a few different ones now. And so we are going to look then at factorizing by HCF, the difference of 2 squares, and the brackets method, all of which we've done before, but this time we're just going to, once we've factorized, then we will solve the equation, okay? Okay, and so here we go. Here's our first example, and we're to solve for x. So, well, if I note here, there's a few things. I note I can, 4 and 10, 2 goes into both of those. So I'm going to divide across by 2, which is going to give me 2x squared plus 5x is equal to, well, 0 divided by 2, that's still 0. Now I can factorize by the highest common factor. And so what's in common to here, both of these? Well, there's an x here and there's an x here, okay? And so if I pull that x outside, that's going to give me, here I will have x and in my brackets, and I'll have equal to 0. And so what was left? Well, here at this term, if 2x squared divided by x, well, that leaves me with 2x, and 5x divided by x, that leaves me with 5. And so here I have x bracket 2x plus 5 is equal to 0. Now we would be used to doing this bit in the past. And so to solve for x, basically, and always I know, with an x squared, a quadratic, I expect 2 values for x, 2 answers for x. And so here I'm going to put this equal to 0, the bit outside the bracket, and I'm going to put the bracket equal to 0 as well. So the first part I have is x is equal to 0, and then the other part says 2x plus 5 is equal to 0. And so then just solving that, well, minus 5 here, minus 5 there, they cancel, and I have 2x is equal to minus 5, so x dividing across by 2 is equal to minus 5 over 2. And so x equal to 0 and x equal to minus 5 over 2. They're my 2 answers for x, my 2 solutions. The other thing that's important here as well with each of these equations, or it's a good habit for us to get into if we have time, is to say, well, if I go back to my original equation, so here I had 2x squared plus 5x equal to 0, and I just check, is this true? So 2 times 0 to be squared plus 5 times 0 is equal to 0. Well, that 2 times 0 squared is 0. 5 times 0 is 0, so 0 is equal to 0. That's true, okay? And likewise, here I have, just to check this other one, so 2, and this time it's going to be times minus 5 over 2 to be squared plus 5 times minus 5 over 2, and we want to see is that equal to 0. Well, minus 5 squared is 25, and 2 squared is 4, so 25 over 4 times 2, well, that's the same as 25 over 2. And plus by a minus is a minus. 5 by 5 is 25 over 2, and is that equal to 0? 25 over 2, take away 25 over 2 is equal to 0. So we can see if that was correct. We can see that our two solutions are both true, that we know what we're about. Okay, we're going to do another example. So here in this case, we're asked to solve for x 25x squared minus 169. Now, I know I have no x term on its own here, but I have a square number here, I have a square number here, and I have a minus sign in between. So I know I've got the difference of two squares. So fixing that, well, the square root of 25 is 5, and square root of x squared is x. So 5x to be squared minus, and the square root of 169 is 13 to be squared is equal to 0. And we know that our difference of two squares, well, it's going to be 5x plus 13 times 5x minus 13 is equal to 0. And now, just to solve, I put each bracket equal to 0. So here, putting each bracket equal to 0, that's going to give me 5x plus 13 is equal to 0. And over here, 5x minus 13 is equal to 0. And so minus 13 here is going to be minus 13 there. Here I'd have to add on plus 13 to bring that back to 0. So on the other side, same. So that's going to cancel here, and that's going to give me 5x is equal to, well, 0 minus 13 is minus 13. And so dividing across by 5, that's going to give me x equals minus 13 over 5. Over here then, with my other equation, I have minus 13 plus 13, they cancel. And so I'm going to get 5x is equal to 13. And again, dividing across by 5, x is equal to 13 over 5. So again, and they are my two solutions for that equation. And again, if I have time, I can check to see, is that true? Are they true? And so just very quickly, just to check, then I'm going to have 25 times minus 13 over 5 to be squared minus 169 is equal to 0. So that's going to be 25 minus 1, well, 13 squared is going to be 25 times 169. 5 squared is 25, so over 25. So they are going to cancel, and that's minus 169. So, well, 169 minus 169 is equal to 0, so I know it's correct. And just checking with the other one again. So here I'm going to have 25 x squared minus 169 equal to 0, and this time I'm going to say x is equal to plus 13 over 5. So here I'll have 25 times 13 over 5 to be squared minus 169 is equal to 0. So 25, 13 squared is 169, 5 squared is 25, minus 169 is equal to 0. And here the 25 and the 25 cancel, and 169 minus 169, well, that is 0. So we know that they're both true. Okay, and so now we're on to our final example. So here we're asked to factorize to solve for x, and we're going to do it by our bracket method. Okay, so just revising our bracket method, well, what do? We write down our factors of x squared, so that's x and x. Here are factors of 56. Well, I have 56 and 1. I have 2 and 28. I have 7 and 8. So 8 and 7. And I'm sure I have a few more, but they're the ones that we can list for the moment. The other thing that I look at here is that's a plus sign. So I know my factors are either 2 pluses or indeed 2 minuses. Okay, and I look at this one and I see it's a minus. So actually I know straight away I'm going to have 2 minuses. Anyway, I do my brackets here. Again, I remember, as always, the 2 inside terms go together and the 2 outside terms go together. So here I have x and here I have x. And which 2 factors from this list here subtracted together or added together are going to give me 15? Well, that's 8 and 7, because 8 and 7 is 15. And in this case, I know they're both minuses, so I just have my 2 minuses there. Now, so that was our usual bracket method. So now, that is all equal to 0, isn't it? So what am I going to do here? I'm going to put each bracket equal to 0. Okay, so very important there for me. So that's simply x minus 8 is equal to 0 and x minus 7 is equal to 0. And so here x is equal to 8. Why? Because here I'd say plus 8. So here plus 8. And likewise, to get rid of the minus 7 on this side, I'd say plus 7. And here plus 7. And they would have cancelled. Equally, they cancel. And so I have x equal to 8 and x equal to 7. And similarly as before, we could check and see if they're true. And we could say, even we can just do it in our heads and say, well, 8 squared is 64. And 64 plus 56 is 120. And 15 times 8 is 120. So 120 minus 120 is equal to 0. So that's correct. Equally here, 7 squared is 49. And 49 plus 56 is 105. And 15 times 7 is 105. So 105 minus 105 is indeed equal to 0. And so there we go. Both of those solutions are true for x. Okay, so open up Schoology and you'll see the questions that you have to do for the learning deck.